Assalamu alaikum viewers, this is Safraz Karni from Begame Hub. Today,
Assalamu
we-
alaikum.
today we are joined by Brother Shoaib from Finland. Hina is also with us today. And today we're going to be talking about chapter 16, verse 44, the clarification in Quran, what the Quran says about that. Assalamu alaikum, brother, how are you?
Assalamu alaikum,
Assalamu alaikum.
Professor Bras, Sister Hina. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Thank you once again for this
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today, Brother Shoaib. This
Yes.
is a very important chapter 16, verse 44. A lot of people have questions about that. I want you to please clarify to our viewers what is your research about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge with Allah against the accursed devil. Now, this particular verse in chapter 16, verse 44 is one of the verses the sectarians like to use a lot to put their point across concerning the prophet being the one explaining the Quran. So today I'm going to break this thing down so that people get to understand it in a better way, to get to comprehend that it is about God first, and then we can then talk about the messenger in order to understand what it represents. So first of all, people quote this verse out of context. And if I give you chapter 16, verse 44, usually when somebody quotes this verse, it has to start from 43. They leave 43 out. So the context is missing, you see. So
Right.
usually you start from 43, then you come to 44.
Okay.
So it says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ. Then he says, فَاسْأَلُوا آلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That is verse 43. So
Right.
verse 44 says, بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالزُّبُرِ. Then he says, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Now, what are the verses saying? Now, the interesting part, whenever a verse is quoted, there is something in Arabic they call siyak or siyak al-kalam, which is called context.
Right.
Now, people like to leave context out of the scenario, right? And they like to use something they call tafsir of the Quran from outside the Quran by
Yes.
using hadith and so on.
Right.
So by this means, since God is the one explaining the Quran, God is the one doing the clarification, God is the one doing the explanation, God is the one doing the elaboration. Most sectarians don't know this point. So they keep relying on the tafsirs of Ibn Kathir, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Abbas, and so on and so forth. While they will be the ones to tell you the best mufassir of the Quran is the Prophet alayhi salam. So even though they say he is the best explainer of the Quran, but yet when they are dealing with the verse, they will tell you this verse, according to Ibn Kathir, is explained this way. According to Ibn Abbas, is explained that way. According to Ibn Taymiyyah, and so on. They keep telling you the explanation of somebody else instead of God.
Right.
So when we take chapter 16, verse 43, verse to 44, as I just read before, then God says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ. We did not send before you. Then he says, إِلَّا رِجَالًا, except men. Because according to God, throughout history, he never sent women as messengers to people. So he said men. So إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ, men to whom he has inspired, given inspiration, meaning they have been inspired to say something. Then he says, فَاسْأَلُوا آلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Now he's talking to the believers entirely.
Right.
So he said to the believers, not the prophet, the believers, then he says, then ask the people of the remembrance. Now this word, al-zikra, the sectarians who translate it as the people of knowledge. God doesn't say al-ilm. Or did he say ulama? Now this is where people leave context out. Now remember, the Jews, Quran chapter 5, verse 13, Quran chapter 5, verse 46, chapter 4, verse 46. God says, وَيُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَةَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ. They twist or distort the word out of its positions or its places. Now, when you do that, you lose the context. Whenever you twist words out of their places in a sentence, you take it out of context. So what they do is, when God says zikr, they will put a new meaning there. When God says hikmah, they will put a new meaning there. When God says sunnah, then they put a new meaning there. You see,
That's
so
a very important point. Yes. Yeah.
exactly. So this is what they do to us. So when we check the verse carefully, God says al zikr, people of the remembrance. The word zikra means remembrance, right? So people of the remembrance. Then God says in kuntum la ta'lamun, if you the believers you do not know. Then verse 44 says bil bayyinat. The bayyinat is the plural form of bayyina. Chapter 98 is bayyina, that is evidence or proof. So the word bayyinat is the plural form. In Arabic, we say jam'u, that is plural form of what? The word bayyina. So that is what? Evidences, or we can say proofs.
Okay.
Then the word zubur comes from the word zabur. When we say something is like a scripture given into pieces, right? Given into parts, pieces, is what zubur. So they are like scriptures. Then he said, then God is talking to the prophet here, or the messenger here. Then he says, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ, and we have revealed to you the remembrance, the zikra. We have revealed it to you also. Then God says, لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ, in order to make it clear, to bring it out, to make it evident to the people. It didn't say to your people. You see, it is not talking about Quran here. I'll come to that point. Right. So he says, we have revealed the zikra to you in order to in order to make it clear to the people. Ma nuzila ilayhim, what was revealed to them. Now, the word nuzila here is a past tense. In Arabic, we say madi, which is past tense.
Right.
So the word is what was revealed to them.
Right.
If it was talking to the Muslims or believers, it will say what was revealed to you.
That's right.
And you tell the prophet, you have to what? Explain or clarify or make clear to them what was revealed to you.
Right.
But God didn't say it this way.
Didn't say that. No.
What was revealed to them? Because we know we have the people of al-zikr. Right. So then God says, "Wala Allahum yatafakkarun," so that they might reflect, or they may what? Give thoughts or think.
Right.
To know that the same God who sent the zikr before is the same God who now sent another zikr, so that that zikr can be brought to you to know that the same God who gave you something can give another person something.
Right.
Yes. So zikr means the people who had the books before.
Yes, people of the book. Exactly.
People of the book.
So I'll break it down to show you why a zikra can also means the book.
Sure.
I'll give the evidence.
Sure.
Right? Zikra. And now, in order to understand what the verse actually means, the zikra mentioned there. Let's say Brother Safraz asked me, okay, what is the zikra and when can we find it? Because God says he has revealed it to the prophet. So if that is the case, and somebody say the word is the Quran, and I say it's not the Quran, somebody might ask, okay, what is the zikra? And where can we find it? So the answer is in the Quran, chapter 38, verse 1. Chapter 38, verse 1. The answer is there. God is going to show us where we can find the zikra. Is it in the sunnah or any hadith book? The answer can be found right here. So chapter 38, verse 1 says, Swad. Then it is, Wal Quran is zikr. So God says, Swad. Swad is a letter in the alphabet of the Arabic language.
Right.
So when he says Swad, then he says, and the Quran possessing the zikr.
Right. By the Quran, yes.
You see, so the word Z in between the Quran and the zikra, the word Z in Arabic, it means to possess something, to have something.
Possess.
Right.
Okay.
The plural form has been used in chapter 85, verse 1, where God says, "Wasama izatil buruj," by the sky containing what? The constellations.
Right.
So that is chapter 85, verse 1. So if we say the sky possesses the constellation, it is totally wrong for us to say the constellation possesses the sky.
Right.
It cannot be vice versa.
Yes,
Right.
it cannot
be. Right.
Exactly. Similarly, chapter 38, verse 1, when we say, well, the Quran is zikr, by the Quran possessing the remembrance, we cannot say the remembrance possesses the Quran.
That's not possible.
Right.
Do you get my point? So
Very, very
just like,
important thing, yes.
good. Just like if I have a wallet, my purse, where I put my money, my wallet. If I put my money in my wallet, I cannot say my money is possessing the wallet.
Right.
It is rather the wallet possessing the money.
Very good point.
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
So in order to get the breakdown, why God actually say, we have revealed to you the zikra, in order to make it clear to the people concerning what we have revealed to them, so that they may give thought or they may reflect. It is not talking about explanation, meaning God will say, explain it to them. No.
Right.
Word bayina, the bayan, it can mean declaration, it can mean clarification, it can mean to make something evident, to make it clear, to make it known.
Yes.
I mean, clarification, elucidation. It has many meanings, but based on the context it is used, in some instances, when you try to use it, you might contradict the verse God is talking about. Because God clearly told the prophet to keep quiet and not to be the one to explain the Quran. He will do the clarification. God will do it. Quran chapter 75, verse 16 to 19. I'll come to that. You see, so now we want to understand further where is the azikr and what is the azikra. We want to understand what it is. So when you go to Quran chapter 15, verse 9, Quran chapter 15, verse 9, God says, Inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. He says, indeed, we revealed the azikra, that is the remembrance. And he says, indeed, we will be the ones to what? To safeguard it. That is, we are the guardians of it, or to it.
Hafizun.
Hafizun. That is, we're the ones to guide it. It is never telling the people you are the ones to guide it. Just like the sectarians will tell you, oh, who preserved the Quran for us? Is it not these people, they wrote it? No. God never said human beings are the preservers of the Quran.
Right, he is Hafiz, right.
This is a very important verse. I think this is a very important verse.
Yeah. It is actually. But the reason why I brought you here is also sectarians misquote this verse. They take it out of context. Again, they will quote it, then they will put their own meaning there. Here again, they will say the Quran. That's how they translate the verse here.
Right.
If you translate the Zikra as the Quran, it becomes a contradiction, because God says the Quran is the one possessing the Zikra.
Right.
So which means in the Quran, when we read the Quran, inside the Quran, you can get Al-Furqan, you can get Al-Huda, you can get Al-Haq, you can get a lot, you can get Al-Hikmah, you can get a lot of things inside the Quran itself.
Right.
Yes.
You see,
so zikr is also in the Quran.
In the Quran, yes.
In the Quran.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is the purpose of the Quran, to serve as a guidance for mankind, where you can get everything inside.
Everything. Yeah.
That's how it is. So now we can get the stories of the Jews, the Christians, the children of Israel, the Arabs, the Romans. You understand? So you can take every zikr from there and remind the particular people it is talking to.
Right.
So that is the az-zikra. So that is why he says the people of the az-zikra. If you don't know that God has sent messengers before, ask the people of the az-zikra. God has given the az-zikra also. So ask, they will tell you, oh yes, God sent messengers like Noah, like Abraham. They will tell you. Right. So now, chapter 15, verse 9, we've seen the az-zikra. Now we go forward. Can we call the az-zikra al-kitab? Because when we say al-zikr, people of the az-zikr, can we term them as the al-kitab, people of the book? Is it correct? Now we are going to find it from the Quran. Somebody will say, why is it that I can call the az-zikra al-kitab, but I cannot say it is the Quran? Because God has explained it to us. I'm not the one saying it. As the people of the az-zikra, God has given the az-zikra also. So as they will tell you, oh yes, God sent messengers like Noah, like Abraham. They will tell you. Right. So now, chapter 15, verse 9, we've seen the az-zikra. Now we go forward. Can we call the az-zikra al-kitab? Because when we say al-zikr, people of the az-zikr, can we term them as the al-kitab, people of the book? Is it correct? Now we are going to find it from the Quran. Somebody will say, why is it that I can call the az-zikra al-kitab, but I cannot say it is the Quran? Because God has explained it to us. I'm not the one saying it.
Right.
God never calls the Quran as zikra. However, it tells you can find it inside. But yes, he calls the book az-zikra. So we are going to see it. Quran chapter 41, verse 41 to 42. Let's go and see the answer there. Suratul Fussilat. It says, Inna allazina kafaru biz-zikr. Then it says, Lamma ja'ahum wa innahu lakitabun aziz. Then verse 42. La yatihi al-batil min bayni yadayhi wala min khalfihi. Then it says, Tanzilun min hakimin hamid. God says, indeed, those who disbelieve in the az-zikr, in the remembrance, after it has come to them or after it came to them, and indeed, it is what? A mighty book. So you see here, God says those who disbelieve in the az-zikr after it has come to them, it means indeed they have what? They have disbelieved a mighty book.
Right.
So you see, az-zikr here has been made as a cognate of what? Al-kitab. It's a book.
Right,
Because
right.
since it's a remembrance, it has been written somewhere in order to give you the remembrance. You see. So now, we can find the az-zikr in the al-kitab, because when we open the book, we will find the remembrance there. It has been written down. It's there.
Right.
Similarly, if you open the Quran, you find the zikr there. It's there. But then somebody will say, what is the difference? Yes, we can get the Al-Quran in the book because it has to be written down in order to become a book.
Right.
So now if I take you to Quran chapter 56, verse 77 to 78, the answer is there. Quran chapter 56, Suratul Waqiyah. And this is what God says. He says, Innahu la Quran al-Kareem. It is talking about the Quran, the book we are reading. Then it says, indeed, it is what? Noble reading or honorable reading. The word Quran, it means reading. Some people will try to say it is recitation. That is a wrong choice of word in the Quran to use the word recitation, because God has differentiated two words for the Quran. When you are reciting from the memory in the Quran, we don't say reading. We say tilawa.
Right.
So usually God will say recite, atlu. Just like Quran chapter 98, verse 2 to verse 3, God says, Rasulun min Allah yatulu suhufan mutahhara fiha kutubun qayyimah. He says, a messenger of God reciting purified pages, reciting. Now, when you are reciting something, it's from the mind. But when you are asked to read, and it has to do with a book, it means it has been written down.
Right.
You see the difference? So God says, indeed, it's the Quran, God used a masculine pronoun. The damir he uses is a masculine pronoun to address to the Quran. He never uses a feminine attributes to address the Quran.
Can you
So
repeat the verse again, please? Verse.
The verse is chapter 56, verse 77 to 78.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Now, the reason why I came to this verse is to show you where the Quran has been written down.
Okay.
Some people will claim the Quran wasn't written down at the time of the Prophet. They will tell you that. Even the Kafirs at the time of the Prophet, they know he wrote it. Quran chapter 25, verse 5 to verse 6. He wrote it down himself. Ektatabaha.
Yeah.
He wrote it. And if he has never written it, they would never have said he wrote it down if there was no book existing at his time. How can they say he wrote it down? He wrote it down. Nothing has been written. How can they say he wrote it down?
Right.
You see the point. So the answer is in chapter 56, verse 77 to 78. When God says it is a noble reading, then God says, where can we find the noble reading? We want to find it. Where can we find it? Then God says, fi kitabim maknun, in a protected book.
Protected book, yeah.
Yes. That is why it has numbers. Right. We have chapter 1, chapter 2, then we have verse 1, verse 2. That is protected. Whenever you give numbers to something, let's say you have the number of dogs at home and you count them. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. The moment somebody steals one, you know.
Right.
So this is why the Quran is precise.
Right.
And God says, no falsehood can come before it or behind it.
Exactly.
You see?
It's a very important point, brother, you made. If you do something you try to remove something, try to add something, and you look at the whole context and it doesn't fit. It's something wrong. you know,
Yes.
Allah cannot do this. You cannot blame Allah that, oh, he's so confusion. Why so much confusion? Because humans made the confusion, not the God. I mean, if
Exactly.
Hmm.
you read the Quran and try to understand with the whole context, everything is very clear and simple. But
Yes.
then they add the tafsir, and then they try to confuse you, oh, this and that, and they try to scare you, or this is supposed to be like this or that. That's
Exactly.
Hmm.
where there's a confusion starts. I mean, when you break
Exactly.
it down, all the ayats, I mean, hats off to you. The way you're breaking down the ayats, it's very clear.
Yeah.
Right. Alhamdulillah.
That is
Yeah.
the. So now we can see that the Quran is clearly written down in a book.
Hmm.
Right? The reading has been written. That is why we say Al-Quran. We call it the reading, the Quran,
Right.
because it has a definite article. Now, in Arabic, there's something they call marifa, or they say adatul tarif, which is a
Yes.
definite article.
Right.
THE, that is there. Now, the
Hmm.
moment we say, you see this cup, you're looking at this cup. If this cup is empty and I put water inside, it becomes the cup. The reason why it becomes the cup, it means it was empty and you saw me putting water here. So when we are talking, I can say, Brother Safras, have you seen the cup? The there means you know what I mean.
Right.
So you say the cup, yeah. Then you say, oh, the cup with the water inside. Yes, the cup.
Yes.
So when we say the Quran, the reason why it has there, because we can find it. We have the book. We have it.
Right.
If you tell somebody, bring me the Quran, he goes to the shelf. He knows what to bring to you. He will not go and bring the Bible.
Right.
Do you see?
Exactly.
Exactly.
If you put writing, let's say you have a book and it's empty, nothing is inside.
Right.
We cannot the book. It's empty. But the moment you write something valuable inside, let's say you write the Quran inside, we can now call it the book.
The book.
Because it has something inside. There's a content inside. Similarly, if I put a recitation, recitation is from your head.
Right.
The moment I write it down into a reading, because the moment I write it, it becomes a reading. We don't say recitation anymore. Because the moment I'm writing it, if you are standing behind me, you'll be reading it. You are not reciting it. I will be the one reciting from my head. Then you are writing it and reading. So when you are reading, we don't say you are reciting. You are reading. So when you put a recitation into a reading, and you let it become a reading, what it becomes is it becomes the reading.
Very good point, brother. Very good.
Yes.
Okay, the definite.
Yes,
Right.
it becomes definite. Definite. And whenever it's definite, it has the beginning and the end. We can never say something is left out.
All right. Okay.
It becomes definite.
Right.
So similarly, like when you put a remembrance, the zikr, when you let it become a reminder, what it becomes is the reminder. A zikra or a tazkira. So now, what I want people to understand is the azikra, where you can find it is in the book, but you can call the azikra the book. But somebody will say, why can't I call the Quran the azikra? It will be wrong to say it that way.
Yeah, you have to prove it. How it's wrong. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the point is, God says the Quran possesses the azikra. Now, how can we get it? Because when the Quran is written down, when you are reading it, then you are getting the azikra from it.
Right.
So now, if I put the Quran down and the book is lying down there, you can tell somebody that give me the zikra, a zikra, give it to me. Because it's a book, it has become a book, it's written down, it's in the book.
Right.
And the Quran purpose is to serve as a reminder for the people. Quran chapter 20, verse 2 to verse 3. Quran chapter 20, verse 2 to verse 3. Ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa illa tazkiratan liman yakhsha. Is to serve as a reminder for those who fear.
Right.
Yes, because it has been written down. So whenever I fear God and I want to respect God the more, I go and find the book and I read it and I will see whatever God is saying to remind myself. Good. So now, When we go to Quran,
Brother Shoaib, let me ask you this. So
yes,
you're saying all the zikr is in the book, which is Quran. All the past all the material from the past, and what should be for your future is in the book, which is all the zikr, all the material combined together.
Reminder.
Reminder
exactly,
in the book Quran.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I gave the example, I said the cup is empty. If I put water, it becomes the cup. So it becomes definite. Nothing is left out because the water is here. That's why we call the cup.
That cup, right.
Yes, because
And
it has the water there.
Right. So all the water is in the book, which is a cup in the Quran.
Yes.
Okay.
So now the Quran has all the things you need.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like I said, the Quran is the guidance. You can call it the Furqan. You can call it the Hikmah. They are all inside.
Everything. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. It contains everything you need.
Okay.
Good. So now when we go to Quran chapter 3, verse 58, God says, the verses we are reading from the Quran right now, God says, Zalika natluhu alayka min al-ayat. Then he says, was zikr al-hakim. He says that, or we can say this, or that is what we recite to you, Muhammad, of the verses. Where can we find the verses? In the book.
In the book.
Because the verses are the writings, so they've been written down in the book. So we find it in the book. So after you are reciting, somebody can ask you, which book are you reciting or you are reading? Then we can say the Quran. Then somebody can say, oh, so you get the zikra in the Quran? Yes, we have the zikra in the Quran.
I think you made the important point about reciting and reading. That's a very important point. People don't realize. This is the part of the confusion. When they when you say the reciting doesn't mean that you're reading it. Reciting means what's in your mind. Allah is giving you, reciting you in your head. This is what it is. And then when you put that in your book, which is Quran, then you read it. Then become reading.
That's the point.
They're two different things. So very good. Yeah.
Okay, let me just add one more, then you bring the question. So based on this ayah, chapter 3, verse 58, there's a further clarification to it in chapter 54, verse 17. Now, this verse is very interesting. Most people like to quote it. But sometimes people quote it out of context. So I want to support the argument with it. Chapter 54, verse 7, Surah Al-Qamar. God says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. Then he says, فَهَلْ مِنْ مُدَّكِّرٍ. He says, we have certainly made the Quran easy for the remembrance.
Okay.
Then it says, Fahal. So is there anyone who will remember, or anyone of remembrance? Somebody who is good at remembering something is called mudakkir. Somebody who has, like, let's say you have read something from somewhere and you put it to your memory. You become a mudakkir. Okay. So you are good at remembering. So is there anyone who would become that kind of person? God is asking. Because he has made the Quran easy for the remembrance. In order for you to remember it.
Right.
Then he asked the question. Fahal, the word hal is a question in Arabic. So then God says, so is there anyone, or does anyone want to be somebody who remembers? You see?
Right.
So this is why we can have even kids have memorized the Quran.
Right.
And they remember it, even though they don't understand it. Some people will quote this verse and they say, God says we have made the Quran easy to understand. No, it doesn't say understand in the verse.
I think right.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think the important part is to remember the concepts which Allah has talked about in Quran, even for the kids and for the adults. I mean, if you understand the concept, I think that Allah is talking about that. Do you understand what I told you to do some certain thing like this way or that way? That's like to remember those things. I think that is a very important point, brother.
Exactly. It's just like telling my kids. I tell my kids, don't touch the TV remote.
Right.
They have to remember that.
And they always remember that when they grow up. Like,
yes. Yes, so that is the point. So now we have seen the purpose of the remembrance, and we have seen where we can get the zikr. It's in the Quran. It is not outside the Quran, like the scholars who say the hadith, the sunnah. No, it's not there.
No.
It is here in the Quran. Now, but what is the purpose of the messenger? What does he have to do when we quote chapter 16, verse 44? Why do people quote that verse? And what is it that they want to tell us? You understand? They will keep saying that it means the prophet should explain the Quran. It doesn't mention the Quran in that verse. It only mentioned the zikr. Now, let me show you the purpose of the messenger, what he has to do in order for the people of the book to pay attention. The answer is in chapter 5, verse 15. Quran chapter 5, verse 15. And let's see what it says. Surah Al-Ma'idah. Then we go to verse 15, and maybe I'll read to verse 16.
Sure.
Right? Chapter 5, verse 15 to verse 16. And let's see what it says. Now God says, Ya al-kitab, kad ja'akum rasuluna yubayyinu lakum kathiran mimma kuntum tukhfuna min al-kitab. Then he says, wa ya'fu an kathir. Kad ja'akum min Allahi nurun wa kitabun mubin. And God says, Yadi bihi Allah. Then he says, Man ittaba'a ridwanahu subul salam. Then he says what? وَيَخْرُجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ بِإِذْنِهِ وَيَهْدِيهِمْ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Now the verses say, O people of the book, our messenger has come to you to make clear, to make evident, to clarify, or if you like, you decide to use the word explain, because the word bayan can mean explain in some instance, but let's put it in that context.
Okay.
But here, it's not talking to Muslims or believers here. No. If you want to understand, it's talking about the people of the book, you can start the verse from verse 13, verse 14. You see, it's talking about the people of the book.
Right.
The people of the past who received things from God. So then verse 15 says, oh, people of the book, these people of the book who has been given a zikr and the book by God. Now God is reminding them, a messenger has come to you, our messenger has come to you to make clear to you much of what you have concealed. Now, Brother Safraz, when something is hidden and you bring it out, is that not making it clear?
Right.
Very
No
good
doubt.
point, brother. Very good point. Just pointing out what was, hey, listen, this is what was hidden, that's there. Yeah, go get it. That's it.
Exactly. That is what the messenger came to do.
Very good point.
It's not as if God's words are not explained, so he has to now explain. No. It doesn't mean like that.
No.
It means people are hiding something. His duty is to bring it out and say, here it is. It is here. Like somebody will say, oh, the Quran doesn't mention the word sunnah. Then I will just open chapter 33, verse 38, and I say, check. It says sunnatullah. He doesn't know the Quran says. Guess what? Most mainstream Muslims don't know that the Quran is even called al-hadith. They don't know.
Yeah, I know. They don't know.
Yes. If you say the Quran is the best hadith, they start laughing. They tell you, no, the Quran is not an hadith.
Yeah.
They don't know. So when you bring the verse out, it's not like you are explaining. You are making it evident only. You are making it known because the person doesn't know. So much of what you have concealed of the book, because they have been given the book, they are al-kitab also, al-zikr. Yes. So because of this issue, the God has to send another messenger to give him the same zikr again and tell him, go and make it clear to the people because they are hiding there. So then, while overlooking much, because some of the things in the book still exist, but they don't use it anymore. You see, a lot of Christians, you tell them, open the Bible, go to Deuteronomy. It says, don't eat pork meat. They will tell you, oh, Jesus said we can eat it now. What? You claim the book is from God. And this is the verse of God saying, don't eat pork meat. But they will tell you, no. So they are overlooking it. It is there, but they overlook it. Then they will say,
like, what I was thinking, I'm just thinking something came in my mind. When he's talking about this ayat you were referring to, Surah Ma'idah, that, for example, I'm not there at that time when the Prophet came and all that. But I was saying this is like a treasure hidden by people. Quran is like a treasure. I mean, you go and get it, that's your treasure for your whole life. I mean, once you
Yeah.
get it, it's like a treasure for you. That was hidden by people trying to hide things from the Quran, not telling you the truth. It's like a
Yes.
treasure, you know?
Yes.
And he was
They
telling
didn't.
basically, go get the treasure. Go get
Yes. To the messenger himself. Quran
it.
chapter
Yeah.
10, verse 15. When he came with the Quran, chapter 10, verse 15, I give you the verse here. This is what his people did. وَإِذَا تُتُلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ. Then God says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا. Then if they say, آتِ بِقُرْآنِ غَيْرِ هَذَا. When you recite the verses of Quran to them as proofs, those who do not expect to meet God, they will tell you, bring a Quran other than this or change it.
Right.
They don't like it because it speaks the truth. They don't like it.
Right.
They'll tell you, change
Yes.
it, bring something else.
Right.
They hide the truth. They don't want to hear it. So they hide it and bring hadith. This is why today, when we read the Quran alone to somebody, they get angry. They don't like it. They want you to use sunnah, hadith, something, to say something else.
Right.
They
So
don't
this
like
is the same old problem has been going on.
the same thing. It
Yeah.
repeats. It's a
I
cycle.
mean,
It repeats itself.
when Allah says it's very simple and clear, it is really simple and clear. The problem is people, from different, for so many years, they come in, they do the tafsir, and they make it everything complicated and so much confusion. And the
Yeah.
people, let's say, for example, the non-Muslim trying to follow our deen, and which is in the Quran, and have so much problem listening to other folks. Oh, this is the way you have to do this and that, and then the guy get back off. Say, I'm not going
Yes.
there. This is so complicated. Your religion or your deen is so complicated. I'm not going to go for that. It's
Exactly.
not true. I mean, this is very simple, very understandable. When you look at the Quran, it's so simple and easy to understand. Everything.
That is the point. That is the point because Quran is about following the reading and God will do the explanation. That is what he told the prophet in chapter 75, verse 16 to 19.
Mm-hmm.
He says, when we read it, then follow its reading. Then upon us is the clarification.
Right.
So what Quran wants you to do is you pay attention to the reading, then God will be the one explaining, not you, not any scholar. You understand?
Right.
So sometimes when I come out and say I'm a scholar of the Quran, people think I'm claiming to bring in a new concept or teach people something new. No.
No.
Scholar means you have learned for a long time, so you know what God has said in the Quran. You bring the verses out for people to also study.
Right.
That is it. I don't need to come and say this is black, even though God says blue, then I'll tell you it's black. No, that's not the kind of scholar I'm talking about.
No.
Yes, the source is only Quran, and it will always
That is
be right.
That is it.
Yeah, exactly.
You see,
Let me give you an example here, like what you're doing, Brother Shoaib. I think you're doing a tremendous job. Those verses, I can tell you right now, the verses you quoted, not a lot of people know about some of the verses here right now.
No.
I mean,
No.
it's so clear when they just go in the Quran. And what you're doing when you're saying yourself, you're not like a scholar. You're just trying to point out, hey, this is there. This is even to me when I look at those verses, it's amazing. When you look, it's
Of
so
course.
simple and clear. And you are the one who actually show me those verses are there. That's it. Your
That
job
is the
is
point.
highlighting
That is-
those verses. Go and read it yourself. Try to understand what Allah is saying. That's all you're doing. And this
Exactly.
is
So
really, I mean, it's amazing what you're doing.
that is the point. Now look what God says here. He said that to the children of Israel in chapter 7, verse 169. This verse is very interesting. I want to show you something from the verse. He told the children of Israel in that verse, he says, Alam yukhaz alayhim mithaqul kitaba. Have we not taken a covenant from them, a covenant of the al-kitab from them, an la yakulu ala Allahi illa al-haq, that they will not say about God except the truth, wadarasu ma fihi, and to study what is therein.
Right.
This is concerning the children of Israel. God took a covenant with them and not to say anything about God except the truth. And then that is the covenant of the Al-Kitab, the book.
Right.
And then to study what is therein.
Right.
Then again, the same covenant he extended by saying in chapter 3, verse 187. He says, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ. He gave them the book. Then he says, لَتُبَيِّنُنَّهُ, in order to make it clear to the people, لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ, and do not hide it or conceal it.
Right.
You see, so which means when you bring out what God exactly says, it becomes the truth. You don't add your own words or change it or hide it. Just bring it out, make it clear to the people.
Right.
Because you know what God says. So why hide it? That's what the scholars are doing. They know what the Quran says.
Yeah, this goes to those scholars, the 187, Surah Al-Imran.
Yes.
This is the one is going on with this world today. That's what they're doing. I mean, because
obviously
they're making money and they're mixing and adding stuff which is not Allah's word. That's very dangerous. That's what
that is the point.
That's what Allah's talking about in this verse.
Yes, yes. And I'll come to that. God has cursed them for that. And I'll bring the verse. He has cursed people who do that. If you know the truth and you hide it, God curses you. You see, I'll come to that verse. Yeah. But now let's not forget the verse I was reading before, chapter 5, verse 15, concerning the messenger making it evident, clear to the people who conceal much of what has been revealed to them.
Right.
So then it says, "O people of the book, our messenger has come to you to make clear, or we can say to make evident, or to clarify, or to make it known to you much of what you have concealed of the book, while overlooking much." Then it says, "There has come to you from God a light and a clear book." Now, when God says a light and a clear book, people think God is talking about two different things.
Right.
Two different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just like when we say Quran and the what? And the Al-Kitab. People think they are different.
Right. They think, right.
Yeah, they are together. You find the Quran in the Al-Kitab, so they are together. They are not separate. When God says Kitab wal Hikmah, people think they are separate. They are two. Yes. We find this somewhere and this somewhere. No, they are together like this. They are inside the same book. Just like God says, Tiwullaha wa Tiwu Rasul, people think they are two separate things. It's together.
Yeah. Right. It's these both are adjectives, right? Those
yes,
are.
I'll come to that. I'll show you why what I'm saying here.
Okay.
When God says, in that verse, when God says, "There has come to you from God a light," a light. He didn't use the word delight. A light, then he says, and a clear book. He didn't say the clear book. So it doesn't become a definite noun. If you use it as a definite noun, then there is a way to break it down in order to understand how they are two different things, but they can be found in the same place. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Just like I gave you the example of the water and the cup.
Right.
In the beginning, a water is just a water, a cup is just a cup. But when I join them together, I can say the water or the cup. Because I've joined them together and you know what I'm talking about. So they become an object, and then the context we are talking about. Now, to break this down, the next verse, verse 16, is going to tell us whether it's talking about two things or one thing. We are going to find the answer there.
Okay.
Verse 16 says, by it, he used the word bihi. He used a masculine pronoun for a single pronoun. He didn't use two pronouns. He didn't say by them. God used the word by it. In Arabic, is bihi.
Bihi.
Means one pronoun. One masculine pronoun.
Singular, right.
Singular. So it says, by which God guides those who follow his approval to the ways of peace, and brings them out of darknesses into the light by his permission. Then he says, and guides them to a straight path.
Right.
Okay, and Brother Shoaib, on this verse 5:15.
Yeah.
People argue about this verse and they said the prophet job is, again, they ask about this verse. He is the one who is going to clear everything. You know, sometimes they argue about that on this verse 5:15, that it was sent down to him and he's going to clear everything for you. Yeah.
Based on people who say the messenger is the one explaining something.
Yeah, right.
The duty of the messenger in this verse is to the people of the book, not to the Muslims or believers or anybody. No. His duty in chapter 5, verse 15 is towards to the people of the book, because they've been given the book and they are concealing something there.
It's already there, right?
Yes, it's there, but they are hiding it.
Okay, I got it.
So his job is to make it evident, just like I mentioned in chapter 3,
Right,
verse
that's
1.
what we're talking about, right. Which was hidden. So something he's trying to point out, that's what it is, A, B, C, D, which was hidden by the previous people.
That is the point. So the word bayan here, doesn't actually mean you are explaining something new. Right. It's already there. You are bringing it back.
Okay, you're just pointing out the previous things which were hidden. That's what Allah has sent me and trying to figure, point
That's
to
the point.
Right, this is what it is,
Exactly, that's the point. That's what he came to do.
Okay.
For them. But as far as the Quran is concerned, there is no one single verse in the Quran where God says Muhammad is the one explaining the Quran. There is no one single verse. And I'll address those points before we end.
Sure.
Right? Good. So now let's quickly go to chapter 16, verse 64. Some of the sectarians will quote this verse to make their points. And then they say this is where it says he has to explain the book. And they keep quoting the verse out of context again. So chapter 16, verse 64, Surah An-Nahl, chapter of the bee.
Right.
God says, وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ. He says, وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا لِتُبَيِّنَ لَهُمُ الَّذِي اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. Then he says, وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And he says, we did not reveal to you the book except to make clear to them, to make it evident to them. Or we can sometimes use the word to clarify to them what they have deferred or what they disagree therein.
Right.
He didn't say we did not reveal the book to you in order to clarify the book or to clarify it. No.
Okay.
There's a difference. The grammatical aspect of this verse is just saying what the people have deferred. It means God has already made the book clear, but because it's clear, when you see two people having misunderstanding, what do? You clarify for them. It doesn't mean you are clarifying the book. The book is clear already.
Right.
Yeah, clarifying from the book. Because declaring from the book.
Brother Shay, when you look at the ayah before that, 1663, Allah talking about what happened in the past. It was there, but then Satan comes and then they hide stuff and all. That makes total sense what you're saying, because when you look at the previous ayah, it was hidden. It was somehow, because of Satan, that thing, people are, disarray, and that's why the prophet came and then trying to tell them, listen, that's what it is, A, B, C, D before, and that something get lost. Now this is what it is. That's it.
That is the point.
Clear, and when you look at those ayats all together,
Yes. So that is the context. It's good to be connecting verses together to understand the point. Now, when we say context, it doesn't necessarily mean anytime you read 2-3 verses, you get a context. Sometimes the answer is in a different chapter. When you connect the verses, sometimes you get the extra answer in another chapter. So you have to go to another chapter to come and connect the dots to get the answer.
Right.
Do you see? For instance, I tell you what, when you take the Quran, it has the big chapters first before the small chapters down. Small chapters sometimes doesn't give you all the details. It leaves the details for the big chapters.
Big chapter, you go back,
Yes. So what you do is back and forth. You check here, you extend, you go for the reference, you come back, then you understand further. So this is why you need to believe in the entirety of the Quran, the book. You can't believe in part and leave part. You see, so the context of the Quran is that God is the one explaining the book, not me, not Muhammad, not you, not anybody.
Right.
When we try to explain it, this is why we put our own words and start, forming things which are not there.
Right.
Quran chapter 24, verse 18 bears witness to that. God is the one clarifying the verses, not us. God says he's the one clarifying the verses to us. You see?
Yeah, Allah makes it clear. Yeah.
Yes. He make the verses clear himself, not
Right.
us. So now, chapter 16, verse 64, when sectarians quote this verse, they will say this is where it says Muhammad should to clarify, to explain the Quran. It doesn't say explain the book. It doesn't say explain the Quran in this verse. It only says it should make it something clear, to make it known. So chapter 42, verse 52, the answer of the book and the lights. The reason why I say the same thing, I'm going to give the answer here. So God says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ. Then he says, رُوحًا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. Then he told the prophet, مَا كُنْتَ تَدْرِي الْمَا الْكِتَابِ وَلَا الْإِيمَانِ. Then he says, وَلَكِنْ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُورًا نَادِي بِهِ مَنْ نَشَاءُ. Then he says, مِنْ إِبَادِنَا وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. He says, and likewise have we inspired to you a spirit from our command. Then he says, you, Muhammad, you did not know what the book was, nor the faith, the Iman. You didn't know what it was. So Muhammad was never in faith. He never knew who God was before. That is why Quran chapter 93 says, we found you astray and guided.
Right.
Right? Of course, God never classified him as a mushrik or a kafir, but he never had faith.
Right.
So then God says, however, walakin ja'alnahu, this book, the book, ja'alnahu, we have made it a light, nuran. You see?
Right.
We have made it a light by which we guide whomever we will among our servants. Then he says, and you shall guide to a straight path, because now he has been guided, so he can also lead somebody.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
So the book is the same as the light, but sometimes when they are used in a conjunction form, you might think they are two separate things. You see? So that is why chapter 5, verse 15 to 16, verse 16, God used the word in a pronoun, in singular pronoun form. He says, bihi, by it. He didn't say by them. They are not two separate things. You see?
Right.
Just like God is also talking about the messenger. When he says, Atiullah wa Atiu Rasul, people think he's talking about two different things. So when God is making a reference of the messenger, because we cannot hear God talking to us, we cannot see God. So God has sent down a message through a messenger. So when you obey the messenger, you are obeying God. So when God is making a reference, he makes it in a singular form. He doesn't make it in a plural form. So I'll give you an example. For example, if you go to Quran chapter 4, verse 14. Yes, chapter 4, verse 14. God says, وَمَنْ يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَهُ. Then he says, وَيَتَعَدَّى حُدُودَهُ. He used the word hududahu. He didn't say hududahuma. The two of them, he didn't say the two of them. He used his limits. He used the word his limits. He didn't use their limits. You see the context?
Right.
Right.
So when people are dealing with such a verse, they will tell you, oh, since God says, Atiullah wa Atiu Rasul, it means you are obeying two different entities.
Two authorities, yeah.
Yes, this is what they will tell you.
Right.
And again, for instance, if you go to Quran chapter 8, I think it's chapter 8, verse, is it chapter 8, verse 24? Let me see. Yeah. God says, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu, istajibu lillahi wa lirrasuli, iza da'akum. When he invites you, he says, oh, you who believe, respond to God and to his messenger when he invites you. He didn't say when they invite you.
Right.
You see? So people taking these things out of context, and they will try to say, oh, he's talking about two entities, meaning obey the God is the Quran and obey the messenger means the hadith. No, it never means like that.
Right.
Okay. When we go to Quran chapter 14, verse 4, Quran chapter 14, verse 4, the reason why God sends messengers, he says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانٍ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنُ لَهُمْ. It says, we do not send a messenger except in the language of his people or in the tongue of his people. Then he says, in order to make it clear to them, or what? To clarify to them, or to make it known to them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, people would think, since he says yubayyinu lahum, it means to explain to them. In the context, we don't say explain to them, which means God has not explained, because God used the word messenger. He didn't use the word prophet.
Right.
He said messenger, and a messenger has been giving a message. According to Quran chapter 21:27, the messengers, they do not precede God in bilqawl. Wahum bi amrihi ya'malun, they do as if he commanded them. So if God never told the messenger, you go and explain my book, how can the messenger go to explain the gospel?
Right, that's correct. Yeah.
Because God, the last time we checked Quran chapter 75, verse 16 to 19, God told the prophet, La tuharrik bihi lisanaka lita'ajala bihi. Do not move your tongue in order to hasten with it. Then he says, Inna alayna jama'ahu wa qur'anahu. Indeed, upon us is the gathering and its reading.
Right.
فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعُوا قُرْآنَهُ. And when we read it, then follow its reading. Then it goes, ثُمَّ إِنَّا عَلَيْنَا بَيَانَهُ. Then indeed upon us is the clarification. It didn't say upon you, Muhammad, is the clarification.
Very good point, yeah.
Right.
You see, so if the prophet has been told this, how can he now go again saying he's explaining the Quran or clarifying the Quran? God never said upon you is the clarification. It says upon us is the clarification, not you, Muhammad. So somebody will say, okay, what is the prophet doing when he comes to clarify? No, you are using the word out of context. Just like in Arabic, one word can have about 15 meanings. Why will you only limit it to one meaning? You see, and always keep saying explain, explain. The prophet is the one to explain the Quran. There's no single verse where it says the prophet is the one explaining the Quran. So when we go to Quran chapter 5, and we start, Quran chapter 53, the sectarians like to quote this verse, and they say the prophet doesn't speak from his own desires.
Right, they say that.
And it baffles me when they use the word prophet in that verse. Because in that verse, it is the context of a messenger. And according to Quran chapter 21, verse 27, God says the messengers do not precede God in al-qawl. They act by his command. That is the messengers. Quran chapter 21, verse 27. You can start from 25, 26, 27 to get the context. It's talking about messengers.
Right.
But if it is a prophet, he has his own personal life. Quran chapter 66, verse 1, he made a mistake. Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrim ma ahallallah laka tabtagi mardata azwajika wallahu ghafurur rahim. Oh, you the prophet, why do you prohibit what God has made lawful for you? Seeking the satisfaction of your wives. Are you telling me the prophet is also speaking from inspiration? Always? Then how come he prohibited something God has made halal for him?
Right.
You see?
Right.
Quran chapter 9, verse 43. He gave permission to some people instead of investigating before giving them permission. He gave them permission before he realized he wasn't supposed to give them permission. And God asked him, why did you give them permission? So if he's talking, if as a prophet he's talking from inspiration, how come he gave somebody permission without God giving him the authority to do that?
Right.
So this is what people don't understand. So they will quote chapter 53, then they will quote verse 3 to verse what? Verse 4. Then you say, وَمَا يَنْتُقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Nor does he speak from inclination. He was only inspired by inspiration. God never say, never. He never speaks from inclination. He never said that. The word doesn't say never. He says he does not, as a messenger, he does not speak from inclination. But he was inspired. Since he has been inspired, what was he inspired with? The answer is in Quran chapter 6, verse 19. He gave the answer there. He says, وَأُوْهِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ لِأُنْذِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. And that this Quran has been inspired to me in order to warn you by it and whomever it may reach. He gave the answer.
Right.
You see? And then he has been told in chapter 50, verse 45, remind by the Quran whoever fears my threat. So it is the Quran he uses to remind people as well. He never uses his own opinion. Quran chapter 27, verse 92, وَأَنْ أَتْلُوَ الْقُرْآنِ, and he has been commanded to recite the Quran to the people, nothing else.
Right.
So then how can this honorable man go ahead now to use something God never gave him to remind you or warn you? Quran chapter 16, verse 89. God says in that verse, he says, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً وَبُشْرَى لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. The interesting part of the verse is, we have revealed the book to you, Muhammad, as a clarification for all things, and as guidance and mercy and good news for the submitters, for the Muslims. So when we say clarification for all things, an ignorant person will be asking you, does he tell me how to use my television? Does he tell me, does he clarify how to use my car? We are talking about the deen of God. You are submitting to God. So he has to give you something to explain everything concerning the deen with him. Because you have to dedicate the deen to him alone. So as a clarification for all things and as guidance and mercy and good news for the Muslims, that's the submitters, those who have surrendered to God.
Right.
Now, so that is the book, Al-Kitab. Now, inside the Al-Kitab, the Quran is written. Inside the Al-Kitab, we get Al-Zikra as well. We get Al-Huda. We get Al-Hikmah. We get a lot of things inside the Al-Kitab itself.
Right.
So now God has sent that Al-Kitab to serve as a clarification. He didn't say you, Muhammad, to clarify everything there.
Right.
Book itself is a clarification for all things. So, Brother Safras, if something is already a clarification for itself, what do you need somebody else to clarify?
No.
Nothing.
I just read the book.
So the Al-Kitab itself, God says, is a clarification for all things. The Quran inside the Al-Kitab, God says he is the one to clarify it.
Right.
So what is left for Muhammad to clarify now?
Nothing.
Nothing. He will just declare whatever is in Quran.
He just need to declare. So he says,
You just want to point out this.
Exactly. So that's why he says, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran.
Right.
God is the teacher of the Quran. Khalaqal insan. He creates the human being. Allamahu al-bayan. His is just to teach you how to declare.
Right.
Because you human being, you don't know anything. It is God who has to teach you first before you can tell somebody something.
Exactly.
So how is it that God will send a book, then you will be the one to clarify? That is an insult to God.
I remember the long time ago we did a program with you. You were giving an example about people come in a different country. They don't know the rules and the laws. You have to study. So now, for example, you know the rules and the law. The next time somebody comes, your brother or your friend you can tell them, guide them, listen, that's what it is. And then they go to this thing. So I think the laws are there, the rules are there, like Prophet Muhammad came and they were saying the laws are there, the rules are there, you just have to follow that. That's my job to tell you that's what it is. And I think that's very simple.
So this evidence can be found in chapter 7, verse 35. God says, "O children of Adam, if messengers come from among you,
right,
narrating my verses to you, whoever will fear and reform, they will have no fear upon them, nor will they grieve."
Right.
So the duty of the messengers is to narrate the verses of God to you. That's nothing new. They don't have to come and say blue, black. No. If God says white, say white. If he say brown, say brown. So I give you two verses before we end this, because I think my kids are calling.
Okay.
Two verses. Chapter 6, verse 105. Let me show you something interesting related to what we are saying right now. Chapter 6, verse 105. God says, وَكَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ وَلِيَقُولُوا دَرَسْتَ وَلِنُبَيِّنَهُ لِقَوْمِ يَعْلَمُونَ. He says, and likewise have we conducted the verses, and so that they may say, you have studied, and that we may clarify it for people who know.
This is a very good ayat, brother.
Yes. So which means God has conducted the verses in such a way, when I study and I'm talking to people, they will know that I have studied.
Yes.
Then he says, and so that we may clarify it. God says, we may clarify or explain it for people, to people who know.
Right.
Right.
When people have knowledge of the book and they have read the Quran and they've seen what it says, when you have studied, they will see it because they can see the verses you are talking about clearly.
Right.
They know it's not your own verse. They know you are not fabricating anything. They can check it. So if right now I sit here and I'm talking to you guys and I'm saying something, yours is just to simply ask me, where's the evidence or where's the verse? I want to check it myself. Then I'll give the verse. Then you check. Then you say, oh yeah, that's true. What you said is true. I can see it here.
Right.
The interesting part of the verse is God says, so that we may clarify. You see the point?
Very important.
He never said you should study and teach people and clarify it to people. No. It is God who has to clarify his own book. So the last verse before we finish this, that's Quran chapter 2, verse 159 to 160. That's the last verses I'm going to use now. Says, Inna allazina yaktumuna ma anzalna min al-bayyinati wal huda min ba'di ma bayyanahu lin-nas fil kitab. Then he says, Ulaika yalhanumullah wa yal'anumullah. Then verse 166, Illa allazina tabu wa aslahu. Then he says, wa bayyanu fa ulaika atubu alayhim. Then he says, wa ana Tawwabur Rahim. So now let's see what the verses say. This is very interesting. Indeed, those who conceal what we have revealed of the evidences, that's the proofs, and the guidance. After that which we have made it clear, we have made it clear to the people, or made it known, or clarify it to the people in the book. You see what God says?
Right.
After he has made it clear, because remember, the book is a clarification for all things on its own. It doesn't need the help of anybody.
Right.
So after God has made it clear, the proofs of the guidance and the proofs and the guidance, after God has made it clear, then God says, those are the ones whom God has cursed because they are concealing it. If you don't conceal it, it becomes known, evident. Everybody will see it clearly. But when you conceal it, people don't know it says it there.
Right.
You see, so then God says, and they are cursed by the curses. Because if you get to know somebody has been hiding a secret from you, which is important, and later on you get to find out, you might curse the person because it's important to you, and they are hiding it from you.
Right.
Then God in 160 says, except those who repent and reform, and then make it known or make it evident. You see, make it clear to the people because you are not hiding it now. So except if you repent and reform and make it clear, then God says, then those he will forgive.
Right.
Then he says, wa ana, and I am the compassionate, the merciful. That's what God says.
Subhanallah.
You see the importance here?
Right.
Very important, yes.
So when the word bayan or bayanu is used, it doesn't necessarily mean you are explaining something. It is just to bring out something which is hidden.
Yeah.
Very important point, I think.
To make it open, like evident.
Exactly. And that is one of the reasons why we do such programs we are doing now, so that people can get to understand that some things the answers are already in the Quran.
Right.
We just need to bring it out so people will see it and hear. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. The one thing is, like, people take it as like an ordinary book written by a man. You know, like, these are God's word. You know, it does not need anyone to, explain it. That's the simplest thing. Like, nothing can compare and no one is needed to explain it.
Exactly.
See, that's the job of Prophet Muhammad. He's just trying to point out the right thing, like what was revealed to him and also in the previous scripture. That's all his job.
It was his job.
Yes, that is it.
He just conveyed the message to everyone.
Yes, convey the message. So God says, chapter 16, verse 35, فَأَلْ عَلَى الرُّسُلِ إِلَّا بَلَاغُ مُبِينٌ. Is there anything upon the messengers except the clear delivery of the message? Is there any other thing? God asked the question. Chapter 16, verse 35, the last part of the verse.
Right.
God is asking the question. Is there any other thing on the messengers apart from delivering the clear notification? Is there any other thing? You know, so when we say the messenger is only to deliver the message, the sectarians think we are talking about a male man.
Right. I was going to say that. You know. They are more interested what the mailman, what he wears, how he sleeps, how many wives he has, where does he live, what kind of car he drives. They're more interested about that thing. They're not thinking about what he deliver, actually, the message which came for you,
and from God, a message from God.
Read that. What's in the message? That's it.
Exactly, Brother Sabras. Last verse. Again, I said last, but this last, it says, لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ أَفَلَا تَأْكِلُونَ. It says, we have revealed to you a book wherein is your remembrance. Will you then not reason? That's what God asks us.
Right.
He says, we have revealed to you a book wherein, in which is your remembrance. Exactly. Then he asked us, will you not reason?
Right. Very good point.
He has to reason and see what God is explaining. Simple, that's it.
Simple and clear. Thank you, brother, your time. Thank you for your time today. Yes, I just want to, please, if you want to give a message to our audience, viewers.
Yeah, I would like to say I appreciate the time and the support and the efforts we show, you know, on this, and then the feedback we get from people. I remember from my first program, my second program with you, the feedback was sound and clear. People gave me a lot of feedback, and I'm looking forward to do more so that we can benefit the people to know more what the Quran says. And they should understand my role. My role is not here to say, oh, I know the Quran more than anybody or everybody. No. My role is the knowledge God has given me. I have that audacity or chance to also show to people who have never or yet reached that level yet, so that they can also study and get the knowledge to benefit themselves and teach others as well. So that is the purpose of the Quran. What you know, teach the next person next to you if they don't know, so that you make it. Because when you hide it, the curse of God will come to you. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's the meaning of shukr. You are sharing your knowledge with others. So that's the good thing.
Brother Shoaib, thanks for your effort. Thanks for your time today. Viewers, our show is ending. Please take care of yourself, your neighbors, your friends, your family. Please read and understand Quran every single day. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Shoaib. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye. Yeah.